What's up, you beautiful people? So happy to be able to be back with you again on another Marriage Moments with Pastor Ron. So happy that you're able to join us. Just want to let you know that all of these marriage moments are archived on our YouTube channel and on our website. You can go there at any time and look at them again, share them with others, let them know what's going on in this marriage moments that we have together every Tuesday here online at our church. Again, so happy to be with you. Today we're going to be looking at the topic conflict resolution. Conflict resolution. You may be wondering, where's that cute couple that I usually have with me on my desk here as I make these video presentations? Well, as I was getting ready to come over here, they were having a conflict. So I left them in my office, and they are there hashing things out even as we speak right now. You know, it doesn't take much for a conflict to kind of jump up. I'm reminded of this couple that was sitting on the front porch of their house, and kind of an elderly couple, and the wife looks over to the husband, and she's contemplating and meditating, and then she kind of screams out to him, yells out to him a little bit, says, "Honey, I'm proud of you." And he kind of turns back and looks at her and says, "Yeah, well, I'm tired of you too." And of course, they got into it. So it doesn't take much for a conflict to kind of jump up and bite us all of a sudden. And, you know, conflicts sometimes can be good. Talking to a couple one time, and they said, we try to avoid conflicts in our marriage. We don't like to have conflicts. And conflicts really can be good for your marriage. If handled correctly, if you go about it the right way, conflict can actually be good for your marriage. Conflict is the price smart couples pay for a deepening sense of intimacy in their marriage. Let me say that to you again. Conflict is the price smart couples pay for a deepening sense of intimacy in your marriage. So I would not suggest that you try to avoid conflict. I would not suggest that you not talk about it. If something's going on, you need to talk about it. And we'll give you some ideas and some pointers in just a minute how to handle those conflicts and how to go about them. But first of all, let's define what is a conflict. What constitutes a conflict? Conflicts are disagreements, struggles, or battles over opposing issues or principles. And as we have talked about before here in our channel, that, you know, opposites attract, basically. And so if you have one point of view, your spouse is going to have a different point of view. And those things, when they rise up to the surface, when they come out all of a sudden, that's what causes our conflicts, our disagreements over certain things, or struggles in whatever area that we're having in. So again, conflicts is going to happen. Conflicts will arise in your marriage. We need to learn how to deal with those conflicts, how to work through those conflicts so that it can be something that's good and beneficial for us. Well, what's the results that we would like to see happen when there's a conflict between us? What is it that we would like to see happen? Well, there's two things that we should like to see happen as a result of a conflict in our marriage, and that's resolution and reconciliation. Resolution and reconciliation. Resolution means finding the answer or analyzing a complex notion into simpler ideas. We've got to be able to find the answer to this disagreement that we're having. We've got to be able to come together and agree on a way that we are going to confront, that we're going to attack this problem, this conflict that is besetting us at this moment. And the second thing is we want to have reconciliation. Reconciliation means 100% restoration to harmony, to bring together again. We don't need to leave anything there that's going to create a resentment, that's going to create in us something that we resent, that we don't like, that's kind of nagging at us there. And you know, most couples don't do either of these. They get to the point in that conflict where they get mad, they're tired of arguing, they're fighting about it, and most of them just tend to drop the subject and walk away. Most of them reach a point where they say, you know what, I just don't want to, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And that's usually as a result of the way that we go about trying to resolve our conflict. A lot of times in that conflict, when we're talking about it, A man will do something that will make his wife feel unloved, step on her core value. And the wife will do something that will step on the man's core value, which is respect. And they get to that point where they're unloving and they're disrespectful one to another, and they just walk away. They just drop that topic. They don't finish the conversation. Well, if that's you, I have a great book that I'd like for you to read. It's been around for a while, and it's called Love and Respect by Emerson, Eckrich. It's a great book to help us understand our core values as men and as women, and how that we, each of us, violate each other's core value. And when we can learn those principles, it will help us a lot in our communication. It will help us a lot in solving these conflicts that we have. Well, let's ask this question. Why do we fight? Why does it seem that these fights come up in our marriage? Well, part of the answer is this, is that we're not perfect, and we don't live in a perfect world. And while we understand that, many of us still expect to have a perfect marriage. Many of us expect that our marriage is going to be different. And those expectations alone is enough to set off countless arguments. I expect our marriage to be this way. I expect things to be this particular way. And when they don't happen that way, boy, we set in to try to correct it. And that's when a conflict comes up. I know in my marriage, there are times early in my marriage, there were times when I would expect my wife, Luann, to be perfect. That everything she did had to be perfect. There was no room for mistakes. She had to be a particular way, to act perfect, to think perfect. And sometimes I was the one that would mess it up. I was the one that would make the mistake, if you would. I expected her to be perfect, but whenever I messed up, I expected her to cut me some slack. Hey, come on, give me a break here. I'm not perfect. Well, I had to come to the point where I realized that neither one of us are perfect. And these conflicts are going to come up. These things are going to come up in our lives that we, if we don't know how to approach, if we don't know how to address, is going to create a conflict. Every day, couples run up against desires, small and big, that collide with each other. Let me give you an example. You have a husband who wants to work overtime. He wants to put in as many hours as he can to make that extra money, because in his mind, he's trying to save up for a down payment on a house. He wants to be able to provide his wife and his family that dream home. And so he's trying to work as hard as he can, gets a second job, gets those extra hours as much as he can. And that's his devotion. That's his drive. Well, guess what? The wife would rather him sacrifice those hours and instead of saving that money for that, to come home, spend more time at home. And there's your conflict. He wants to stay out there working and make the money, and she wants him to come home, spend more time with her and the kids. I mean, it might be that she wants more help with the kids instead of her having to deal with them 16, 18 hours a day. And she wants a little help, and no, he would rather work. And so then they get into it. They have this conflict, and they start fighting about it. You know, some don't think that arguing as being good for the marriage. Some think that it's not good, and we shouldn't argue so much. And some couples, what they do is they suppress, they bury those feelings that they have one towards another so that they don't fight. Because some of them think, man, if we get in fights, then that just means that divorce is right around the corner. If we're fighting all the time, then that just means that divorce is right around the corner. And as a result, both people walk around like a couple just simmering like volcanoes that can just explode at any time. You know, let me say this to you. The truth is that buried conflict has a high rate of resurrection. Let me say that to you again. The truth is that buried conflict has a high rate of resurrection. If you're pushing things down in your life because you don't want to deal with them and you don't want to talk about them and you're trying to bury those feelings, guess what? Sooner or later, they're going to explode. They're going to come up, and you'll have to deal with them. And if you don't know how to solve this conflict, if you don't have a resolution figured out on how to work these things through, these things are going to erupt in your marriage. So far more important than whether you argue or not is how you argue. How do you go about it? So let me share a few tips with you on how to fight fair. Number one, plan a peace conference. There's this topic that keeps on coming up in your marriage. Talk to your spouse about it and say, look, you know what? We need to have a peace conference. We can't ignore this conflict anymore. We need to get together and we need to come to an agreement, a mutual agreement on how we're going to deal with this conflict. Number two, cultivate a win-win attitude. Cultivate a win-win. Seek to understand your partner's perspective instead of trying to prove your case of why it should be done your way. Help me understand why you feel that way. Help me understand why you look at things that way. Try to put yourself in your partner's shoes and try to see the world from his or from her perspective. In fighting fair, the point is not to prove your partner wrong and win. The goal is to understand one another so that you both win. So cultivate a win-win attitude. Number three is attack the problem, not the person. When you're trying to resolve this conflict, attack the problem, not the person. You're not going to change their point of view. You think that by out arguing, raising your voice or whatever, that you're going to change their point of view? Probably not. You're probably not going to change their point of view. Our natural impulse during conflict is to defend our position. I'm going to defend. I'm going to protect my position. I'm not going to accommodate your thoughts. I'm not going to accommodate what you believe and what you're thinking about it when we're in this. To sum up this idea of fighting fair, we must be and have a spirit of cooperation. We must be willing to kind of bend and go ebb and flow a little bit with it, give up a little bit and talk about it. But the idea is to come to the point that we both agree on the topic. So cultivate a win-win. Attack the problem, not the person. I say one of the things to people is that when you're in a conversation with someone and you're talking about something, don't use the word you. Don't use the word you. Because anytime you bring up that word and you start saying, well, you this and you that, those are fighting words. Those are attack words. No, you need to use the word I. Well, I feel this way. I think the following. But whenever I'm using that word you, boys, I'm attacking you. And that doesn't feel too good. So we need to attack the problem and not the person. Third is this. Pick a time to talk about the problem. Pick a time that we can both sit down and talk about it. I like to tell people to sit down at the coffee table. Sit down at the kitchen table and talk about things. But don't start a conversation 10 minutes before you need to leave for work. Don't start a conversation 10 minutes before you need to leave for work. Because what happens is this. Sit down, let's talk. And you know you've got to go in 10 minutes. But you unload your whole point of view, you unload your thoughts, and then you go, oops, I got to go. And you leave all of that on your spouse. What are they going to do the next 8 hours? They're going to simmer. They're going to talk about it. They're going to ruminate. We don't want to do that. Second point I would say is this. Stay on topic. Don't spider web. Don't jump from point to point. We're going to talk about this, and we're going to stay on this topic. Third point would be, don't interrupt one another. If they're giving their point of view, don't interrupt them. Let them finish their thoughts. If you need to take notes, go ahead and take notes. Write down their points, and when they finally get through explaining their whole point of view, now you can go back, well, you said this, and let me give you my thought, and you talked about that, and let me tell you how I feel about it. And we can go about it, but don't interrupt one another. Try to understand their point of view. Ask me, or ask them the question, help me understand that. Help me understand why you look at it that way. We need to be kind, and we need to be courteous to one another. Remember, the whole point here is for us to try to solve this conflict that we're having and not tear the other person down. You know, there's just going to be times that you just don't see eye to eye on things. And there are going to be issues that come up that we don't agree on or can't seem to come to an agreement on. Drs. Les and Leslie Parrott came up with this neat little card that they share with people on how to let the other person, how strongly you feel about this conflict. You'll find this information in the notes below. that you can download there and look at them. I kind of like it because it lets my spouse know exactly how I feel about the conflict that we're going to talk about here at this when we're sitting at the table. For example, there's 10 of them, but let me just share a few of them with you. Maybe this conflict that my wife and I are going to talk about, I'll tell her, look, to me, this is a number one. This is a number one. Number one means, or number one says, I'm not enthusiastic, but it's no big deal to me. It's okay. I'm letting her know how I feel. She may come back to me when I'm bringing up something. She goes, well, I kind of feel like a number 4. I don't agree, but I'll let you have your way. Well, all right. I'm seeing how strong she feels about this conflict that we're talking about. Maybe one of them says, what's number 7 here? I strongly disapprove, and I cannot go along with it. Well, that lets me know just how serious you think about it. And then I love number 10 here on this one, over my dead body. Yeah, like this conflict we're having, not going to happen. You know, if it gets anywhere in that 8, 9, or 10 when we're talking about, yeah, I need to reevaluate. I need to stop and think about it because this is going to be a strong thing that we're going through, and I don't want to have to get to that point that it's over my dead body. So it's a good indicator to let us know how strongly we feel about an issue. And again, we need to try to figure out what the other person is thinking about. I like the idea that if I'm talking with you and you share a point of view with me, and obviously I don't agree with that, or I don't think it, or I don't see it that way, to me a good question to ask is, help me understand that point of view. Help me understand why you think that way. And once I receive that information, it'll give me a better way to look at her and understand what she means by it, what's coming up, what's her mentality towards that idea of that. And then, you know, there's just times we're in the middle of a conflict that we just need to kind of settle down. We need to kind of cool down a little bit. And we need to take a little time out. Like what the Bible says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 11. So encourage each other and build each other up, just as you are already doing. Remember, this is your spouse. This is the person that you love. This is the person that you married because you want to have a great time. Conflict's going to happen. Don't avoid the conflict, but let's resolve it. Let's work towards a resolution on these conflicts that come up. Psychologically, you know, this fight or flight response is triggered in us whenever these things come up. And each person will go into a protective mode, or they'll go into an attack mode. In this state of escalation, it's not uncommon to say or to do things that later we regret. Boy, I tell you, even right now, the Lord convicts me of something that happened one time with Miss Luann and I. We're into it. I don't even remember what the topic was or what the conflict was, but I just know I wanted to get this thing done. Probably a toy I wanted to buy for myself, and she's like, no, we can't afford it, but man, we're into it, and we're back and forth and interrupting one another, and just kind of, you know, probably at a number 10 for her over my dead body. And I was so frustrated, I said something to her, and it's one of those things that in my mind, it's as I can see those words leaving my mouth and going to her ear. And I just knew that as soon as these words hit her ear, it was going to hurt her deeply. I mean, it's almost like I wanted to be able to chew those words back up and not say them. And I said this thing that I said, and I just saw her countenance change. I saw the tears come into her eyes. And I mean, immediately I was, oh man, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I said that. But it was too late. I had said it. Those words had reached her ears, and the harm and the pain that I caused her. Oh, I was so sorry for that. We need to understand, we need to take a time out sometimes. In this state of escalation, we'll say things that we don't really mean, but we say them, and in the process, we hurt the other person, and that's not what we're trying to do. So how do I know if I need a time out? How do I know? How do I recognize my need for a timeout? Well, let me ask you, do your fists get all clenched when you're talking? How about your face? Is it all red? Are you breathing fast? You feel your heart rate going up? Maybe there's tears coming down your face and you're so hurt you feel like screaming. Maybe you feel like throwing something. Yeah, probably need a timeout. Probably need to get away. So how do I ask for a timeout? How do we request a timeout? You call a timeout for yourself. You don't do it for the other person. Well, it looks like you need to take a little time. Well, see, there's that word you again. No, you know what, honey? Can I take a little time over here and kind of get control of my thoughts? Can we take 15 minutes in here and let me kind of cool down a little bit and regather my thoughts? But here's a hint, though. If you ask for a little time out and you say, give me 15 minutes, be sure you come back 15 minutes later. Because if you don't come back, that calling for a timeout next time, not going to work. Not going to work. Because you're all, worked up again. Hey, honey, give me a half an hour to cool down. Nah, last time you didn't come back. So we're going to finish this now. Man, your fists are clenched and your teeth are talking through your mouth. No, go ahead and call a timeout. Go and take that time. Sit down, relax, take a few deep breaths, and then come back and continue the conversation. And remember what's important. Remember what's important in this conflict that you're going through. Try to identify what you're thinking or feeling. That's made it so difficult for you to come to an agreement. Think about the I messages instead of the you messages. Well, I feel this way. I think that we should try to this. Remember that the two of you are a team. And the only way that your relationship will win is if you work towards a resolution. If you work towards coming up with an idea of how to fix this thing. So remember, don't avoid conflicts. Conflicts are going to happen. But let's learn how to do conflict. Let's remember what it is that we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to accomplish a resolution by coming to an agreement, and then along with a restitution, a reconciliation to that problem that we're having. We want to find that 100% restoration to harmony. And let's learn to let things go. We don't need to hold on to those things that have hurt us. And let's apologize. If you've done wrong, apologize to your spouse. Look, I'm sorry I lost it. I'm sorry I said those things. I don't know how many times I told Ms. Luann I was sorry after I said those words and they went to her ears. And boy, I was so ashamed, so embarrassed of those things that I had said and done. I vowed to myself, man, I'll never do that again. This is my wife. I love her. I don't want to hurt her that way. Every couple will go through conflict. But it's very important for us to learn how to solve those, how to fix those things. And let's learn conflict resolution. Hey, thanks so much for being with us today. Pray you receive a blessing from this. Next week we'll be talking about how to have a date night. We're going to have a little roundtable discussion here with several couples talking about how they do date night, and we'll talk about that. Date night is so important for our marriage. Until next week, we'll see you. May God bless you.